Huge plays from Lil Pack, but that's just the beginning of the evening. Shockwave 64 is underway, and we're going to be having a commentator battle up next. FX TLOC's own Sethlon versus BB Neighbor. I love it. It's like everything I love. All the little handles I love, all in one convenient little title card. I love it.
All the good ones. That's awesome.
Ryan Neighbor, of course, representing the Brown Battalion, and Sethlon, not only is he representing FX Game Exchange, but also Attorney Locator. We hired him aboard to be a phenomenal analytical commentator for all the fine folks at home. But this is quite the matchup. Neighbor obviously playing a character like Sheik, I'd say has a bit of the advantage here.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that Roy doesn't really have any projectiles of his own to deal with the projectile game that's going to be coming out from Neighbor. So you can expect needles to be a really big thing. But it's going to be about what happens whenever Sethlon's able to close the gap. And that's one thing that we've already seen a bit in the early game, is even though Sethlon's been able to close the gap consistently, so far Neighbor's been able to words are hard. Neighbor's been able to come out on top from a damage standpoint. He's been able to have some solid answers so far whenever Sethlon closes the gap. But as these percents start to climb, I'm getting a little bit worried for my sponsored friend.
Yeah, what's like, as you're kind of touching on, Sethlon being able to come back and bring back the percents in his favor in certain cases. But what's going to matter in this matchup is who is able to take off the first stock. With that lead, with Sheik, he's able to rack up percent and then get the second stock whenever. But with Roy having to work twice as hard to build that percent, if he's able to get that first stock, it's going to be monumental.
I feel like Roy has to work twice as hard to build percent, but half as hard when it comes to getting some of those kills.
Exactly.
Even there, Neighbor colliding directly with that Vanish, but it's not enough to take off the stock 107% and counting on Sethlon as he's really losing some stage control. The surprise up B, however, huge punish for Neighbor missing that grab. And he was just a pixel away from potentially converting into that 50-50, but instead he's going to be losing stock one. And this is coming back to something that you said before. Whoever takes the first stock, they're going to be having a lot of momentum. And so far, Sethlon really coasting with this momentum. 30% is nearly netted on Neighbor, and Neighbor's desperately trying to close out the stock. That's a great way to do so. But again, Sheik's lackluster KO potency is really coming to bite her.
Exactly. Sethlon doing a very good job of racking up percent in the first stock and in this stock. 51% already on Neighbor, unable to take off Neighbor's second stock. Neighbor trying to find a way to take off Sethlon's first stock, slowly gaining stage advantage, but Sethlon still keeping calm and patient.
This is really big as well. Ooh, the surprise down there.
Right.
Okay. Neighbor, he still has a little bit of those mix-ups in the bag, which is what he needs. But right now, above everything else, there you go. That's what exactly we wanted to see, a kill from him. And Sethlon picked up on it. He expected maybe something like a fair, but Neighbor opted to use the bouncing fish. It had a little bit of startup, which was just enough to deal with that option. Neighbor, back in this from a stock standpoint, still has a huge mountain to climb from a percent standpoint. But what's he going to be trying to do to maybe even up this gap a bit?
What he's doing right now, getting in, making confirms off of forwarder, off of his aerials, stealing grabs and getting bouncing fish out of grabs, trying to go for a really strong read there with the up B, however missing it. What he's doing right now is what he needs to do to get back into the game. But Sethlon already able to contest Neighbor throughout the entire set with racking up percent is going to be really hard, especially as you were touching on earlier, Roy having far more kill potential than Sheik.
Let's see how far the kill potential can go. That's how far it goes.
Exactly.
From one side of town and city all the way to the other. Sethlon, with a well-placed attack, is going to be taking game one pretty convincingly.
Yes, it's really solid there. So I rarely ever see a matchup where Sheik's ability to rack up percentage is being contested so well. And what Sethlon is doing a very good job of is he's, like I was saying, contesting the percentage. Whenever Neighbor is able to, rack up, able to get Sethlon to a really good percent, Sethlon's able to bring it back in his own right and then seal the stock. And
this is really important because we talk about, if I look at a graph on where each character should have the most potency, for Sheik, it's all about that early game. And it kind of tapers off as the percents get towards those triple digits. Whereas with characters like Roy, it's more like, I guess it's a bit stronger in the middle and towards the end, I'd say more so. But it doesn't even compare to how strong Sheik's early game is. But the fact that Sethlon is able to keep up and basically answer damage for damage in the early game, it's what's allowing him to really carry and continue the lead in the end game.
Yes, and that's why Neighbor needs to be able to take off the first stock. Since Sethlon's able to contest so well with racking up damage, if he's unable to take off that stock, like we saw in the first game, it's going to be a really hard battle for Neighbor Sheik.
Sethlon, he's been playing Smash for quite some time, and he is a student when it comes to studying fighting games and when it comes to studying the minds of the opponent. And I'm pretty convinced that already he's been picking up on some of Neighbor's habits, and he's going to be looking to punish those with all that he can.
Yes, as we're seeing, like we were touching on, Neighbor racked it up in. He was at 30% just a few seconds ago with Sethlon's Roy at 80%. And already Sethlon has closed that gap tremendously, and Sheik is already in the kill range.
Ooh, nice. That was really good from Neighbor. He understands that even though the bouncing fish whiffs, he has enough time to go and plant the nair. Unfortunately, sent Sethlon right back onto the stage. And this is the scary thing. Above all else, Neighbor cannot give Sethlon stage control because, as you can see, once Neighbor is cornered there, that disjoint from Sethlon, ooh, so scary.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Scary. Huge knockback, great range as well. And that's just not the place you really want to be whenever you're dealing with a character like Roy.
Yes. And then now Neighbor's back in this terrible, hard to work with situation. He has to try to take off a stock while Sethlon, who's able to match his pace in the early game, is able to start his early game again and rack up that percent. So Neighbor's going to need to find some way to get around this disjoint and punish, but the bouncing fish on the stage, however, is going to help Sethlon along his journey to get to this kill percentage. 2
bouncing fishes connecting on stage. One resulted in the loss of a stock, the other resulting in some big damage and the loss of stage control. And Sethlon has had complete control of this stage. Neighbors have been backed into this corner the entirety of this second match. He's finally able to weave around, but again, Sethlon coming back uncontested. Not what Neighbor needs right now, seeing as he's down almost an entire lap right now.
Yep.
That's going to be just enough. What was that, a dash attack there?
That was Roy's, pretty much all of Roy's options are kill options eventually.
I'll tell you what, Roy's been definitely going to the gym. That's where that's why he wasn't in Brawl, was because he was just at the gym. He was just like,
yeah,
I'm ready now.
Like,
I'm ready.
Now. I'm going to come back in the next game, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm made of. And he's definitely doing that tonight. Sethlon coming out on top in this set.
He invested in those anchor arms. Now he's a jerk, and everybody loves him. Too much fun. Way too much fun.
How tough are you?
Oh, God. What?